Tēnā koutou katoa, no ngā whuinga te kahuku whangaro, no te rarawa hau, ko maunga ime me te maunga, ko whangaroa te moana, ko pupake te awa, ko maunga, ko tahawai tōku marae, ko tahawai tōku hapu, ko cinnamon, Whitlock hau, ko te ururoa, tuku tipuna. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Well, how do you follow that act of Doctor Who and Co? It's a hard ask, but I'm going to try and give it a go. Firstly, I want to acknowledge and thank all of our distinguished guests here in the front, but also everyone here in this whare. For those of you who may know me, I used to work here at MIT in a past life, so I want to acknowledge some of my nursing colleagues as well, because that's really important to me. Nursing and the kaupapa and the profession of nursing has really informed and shaped who I am, so I really am grateful for being a registered comprehensive nurse and having worked here at MIT in the past. I also just want to acknowledge also the recent passing of our koe, whaia Donna Rauwhero, she's a Rauwhero, but Donna Richards, who has left an indelible mark and imprint on all of the mahi that she had done, all of the people that she had been involved with and connected to. And for those of you who don't know, Donna is from Pukaki. Donna had worked in Māori public health and was a strong community leader in that whole area for well over 20 years. She is also mana whenua to this rohe, so it's a big loss to have Donna's passing last week. So just want to acknowledge our koe's passing. In saying that, it's important to mention her because her brother, Sonny Rauwhero, of course, was part of the mana whenua here, who used to work here at MIT some time ago, and I'm really fortunate and privileged to know the whānau from Pukaki and the Rauwheros really well. So a little bit of context, because it always is about context. A little bit about myself. So I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for some time. I'm also, for my sins, decided and opted out like Doctor Who to do law. So I sort of managed to do a law degree and became a solicitor and barrister of the High Court back in 1998, so it's been a little while. More recently, I suppose, I have worked for the Crown and I've managed to survive it, barely, but I did used to work for the Ministry of Health. So my background's very much around HORA, around public health, but fundamentally it's around social justice and equity and pursuing the kaupapa for whānau, with whānau. So my kōrero here, as much as I'm going to try and relate it to UNDRIP, because that is the kaupapa of the evening, it's also the acknowledgement that with UNDRIP, with the United Nations Declarations of Indigenous People's Rights, we also have Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So as Dr. Who talked about, the rule around contra preferentum, the proferentum, around the Indigenous, the First Nations, or the context around the Māori text taking priority, that never occurred. So we know that there is a body around Aboriginal rights, more commonly called Indigenous rights nowadays, but of course Aboriginal rights have existed in common law for well over 600 years, as quite rightly alluded to. I'm here primarily to talk about a little bit about myself, but also around the kaupapa that we're involved in, that I'm involved in. And so for me, I am fortunate enough to lead a small organisation called Thrive Teen Parent Support Trust. I hope I'm mindful that I'm making a bit of, what are they, puff noises or something like that? Not sure about it. Anyway, please bear with me. So I didn't want to, this is some of the context, so I don't feel compelled to look at that. I know that having been to many presentations, people like to talk about the work that they do, but I suppose the work that we do at Thrive. We do work with young people, we work with the rangatahi, we work with their babies and their whānau, but we also work with people that have lived experience. So with the rangatahi Māori that have mental illness and mental distress. So those are really important kaupapa for us in our mahi. I've got one of those deficit slides up there, so I don't want anyone to dwell on that because, you know, this is some of the complexities. Like I said, I don't want you to dwell on it because at the end of the day, but that is the state of the nation. So I'd like to sort of move past it, but the reality is that these are some of the challenges that whānau face at this point in time. So the recognition around UNDRIP and its utilisation is really important, but also you know, the need to challenge the status quo, the need to look at policies, the need to advance the kaupapa with like-minded people like yourselves, with service providers, with professionals, and with many, many others. So I've got up there things around, you know, whānau, essentially for teen parents, for people, for whānau that have mental illness and lived experience. Often they have no whānau support. So part of the role, part of our mahi is around providing support. It's either none or limited, but often it's actually none. So that's pretty tragic, really. So we know about poverty, and we know that that's an issue in this country in terms of whānau being pohara. There's also the issue around trying to gain employment. And of course there's no money. So when people are telling or asking, or when young people, young parents are wanting to get a job, and there's a lot of encouragement out there to get a job, find whatever job you can get. Very difficult to get a job if you can't pay for the birth certificate, or you can't pay for the driver's license, or you don't have a driver's license. Very difficult to do any of these things if you don't have a form of ID. So ID is really critical for young people, and I don't think many people actually realise that that is the situation. So a lot of young people are discriminated from the get-go. If you can't have ID, you actually can't participate in this society. Very tough to do it. So, you know, what we do know is that for many of the whānau that we work with, we try and find some pots of gold in the cupboard in my office, often. But you know, it's a big ask, but we do try and help people, as many people as we can, because that's really important. You can't advance if you don't have ID. Seriously. For those of you who are working in provider land or with services or with whānau, you really can't obtain any goods or services, let alone a benefit, let alone an opportunity for education. You really can't without ID. So ID is really critical. And it's anywhere between $33 to $97. A birth certificate's the cheap one's $33. And I'm saying this because that's a real issue. It's a real issue. It's a real marker against this society not being able to support those who are disadvantaged and vulnerable and effectively are being excluded. So I think, you know, the reliance probably on UNDRIP would be helpful, and being able to sort of include that more in our advocacy work would be very beneficial. Housing, everyone in Auckland is struggling with, everyone in Aotearoa is struggling with this housing situation. That's no different for young people, except the young people that we work with, when they are trying to find somewhere to sleep, often they can be couch surfing, often they're living in overcrowded homes or garages or spaces, and sometimes they're living in places which you know, where peas being manufactured, or where there's violence, or a whole range of challenging issues. So there is no equal playing ground as if we're talking about rangatahi, and this is a community that I work with for rangatahi at this point in time. It's a very tough space, especially if you're hapu, if you're a teen parent, you're already discriminated against to a certain degree, and you already experience a degree of stigma. And then of course social stigma that goes with that. I've got some other things down there around violence and addictions, education and holder. I think many people think that teen parents, if I'm talking about teen parents don't actually engage with midwives and with health professionals. They very much do. Most of the teen parents that we work with, they're very, upon discovering that they're hapu, and sometimes with or without the support of whānau, they just refocus. It gives them an opportunity to do good in their life, or what they perceive as being good in their life, and it does centre them to do things and to change whatever needs to be changed. So those are the complexities, dare I say it. And I didn't want to, I clearly didn't want to focus too much on the deficit. But this is, the UNDRIP has themes, and this is the theme I think that we're fortunate enough to be involved with. And so the theme of Thrive and the theme of the work that we do, because advocacy is really important. It's really important at a community level, it's really important at a political level, it's really important at all levels, essentially. But what we try and do is that we advocate against discrimination and social stigma, because it is social stigma that violates and oppresses children, so future generations, and young people. And the future generations by actions that enable connections to flourish and thrive as young Māori and as young, vibrant whānau. So part of this is around, around establishing truth and establishing trust. So building a relationship with whānau. So that's critical in every relationship and every encounter you have. So it's around truth, it's around trust, it's also around engagement. So when we're talking about UNDRIP, we know for one it's around connecting with people, it's about creating a groundswell. So for us directly, it's actually about engagement. It's about building the trust and engaging and not letting go. Not letting go until they're ready to let go. But often we have places, spaces that don't engage necessarily, or contracted for 5 contacts and that'll do. And then the onus is actually put on the client or the whānau, and then providers or services wander off and say, well, actually that whānau's no good because they didn't engage. You probably didn't try hard enough. You probably didn't try and establish trust or the truth. You didn't grab them, you didn't build your rapport. So those are really important factors. But of course, it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to do it. So it's really important to not only talk about it, but walk with it, to do the action. And I'm saying that here, and it seems to be odd that I would be saying something like that. Maybe it's not odd. But action in terms of once you've told a young person that you're actually going to see them and that you're wanting to help, you have to be present and you have to actually do what you say you're going to do. It seems obvious, but unfortunately it's not that obvious. So, but I just wanted to sort of highlight that. There is a bit of a profile with all of this though. So I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we are, and we are talking about rangatahi Māori, so I just wanted to highlight some of the positives and the turning into positives. So some of the positives that we know is that we work with about 56% identify as Māori, and they identify as primarily as coming from Ngāpuhi. So we have a lot of Ngāpuhi whānau registered and that we're working with. So I'm really excited about that. We have had in the last 10 months direct engagement with 116 young parents. So that's fabulous. That's mamas and papas. And we've been able, part of our role is that because we have, generous people that gift and give us things, we're able to gift and give things to the people that actually need it. So we're able to just help a wee bit. So by giving baby equipment, support, aroha, baby equipment, which is really helpful because it minimises the cost for them, for teen parents, young people. And of course we're in love with the fact that we've had 69 babies over the last 10 months. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of futures, that's a lot of love. There's a lot of love right there. So, you know, we're grateful for that. But that's not easy. It's not easy for this community that I'm talking about or trying to talk about. Because it really does need a lot more people like us here in the whare actually celebrating and talking more about them and advocating with them. Not for them, but with them. So it really does need a lot more intervention. Those points that we're kind of looking at in terms of turning into positives, there's a little bit. And sometimes it's, you know, as I've highlighted there, some of it's around reconnecting with whānau. People assume that, you know, that whānau are strong and resilient and they're present. That's not the case all the time. So, you know, our commitment really is, if our whānau rangatahi choose, that we try and connect them with their whānau and that we support and work with their friends and their community, just so they can re-engage. Because being hapa when you're a teen parent is essentially people wander off and they leave you and you have increased isolation. So part of this is around, in terms of turning the positives, re-engaging, building their confidence, reconnecting them back to whānau and their community. Some of the agencies, I suppose, that we struggle a little bit with. So I've got OT, which is not, it's not the Office of Treaty Settlements. There's a missing an S. It's the Oranga Tamariki organisation or ministry. Now that's challenging. They're a little bit challenging. They need some work in that space, to be honest. Partly, I think, because there's probably not enough Māori in there. There's probably not enough whānau in there that actually can do with some really good workforce development and expertise around tikanga and te reo. So there is a bit of help, I suppose, that's needed within that ministry. But also, I think often is they do discriminate. I think often there is an aspect. So I heard of the other day someone showing up to someone's home and just declaring that they're about to have a family group conference without any notification. Now that's for those of us, what do I know? I might know a little bit, but you know, that's kind of unheard of, really. You don't have an FGC just on the spot, on the spur of the moment. It requires notice, it requires sufficient timing. So there is some behaviours and some processes that need some fine-tuning and need some challenging, probably more so than fine-tuning. So, but also knowing that there are places like WINS and the police and midwives that probably could do with a wee bit of uffie and a wee bit of support as well, in terms of overcoming some of their perspectives and their views. So part of that's around increasing people's awareness and providing information and increasing their understanding. For some of the, in terms of turning into the positive, for some of the whānau, of course, they don't necessarily, for some, they don't actually necessarily know who their whānau are. They don't have any ties to their iwi. They might identify Ngāpu because it's north of the bridge, as many people have done in the past. North of the bridge, I must be Ngāpui. But in terms of building that, it's the truth. I'm sorry. Yeah, but in terms of building that relationship with iwi, that's really important. And so an investment really needs to be made in this whole area, not only from the iwi themselves, but also different organisations and different structures need to do a little bit more there. And I just highlighted that many whānau just have no knowledge or limited awareness around tikanga and te reo, and their Māoriness, I suppose, is a way of saying that. The last slide that I've got is just a little bit around, you know, the importance around equality and equity. But you've all seen this before, so I'll just quickly jump to the no slide. But I mean, like, you know, the purpose, I think, of the kōrero from my perspective was just to highlight a few barriers and a few challenges that a community really faces and struggles. And I am talking about, I mean, I interface with young people daily, so I'm not making this up. This is all very real, and their pain is very real, as are their struggles. So I do know that there's a lot more that can be done. Nō reira. Kia ora.